Welcome everyone to the Lew Perspective. Hey John, how are you
Hey,
again?
I'm good, Harold. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for asking here. We were in the last podcast, we talked a little bit about some of the things that were happening and we wanted to sort of continue that. I know some things that we really wanted to address, and I know we sort of ran out of time on that one, but we wanted to continue it in this particular segment here. So hopefully everyone is here can continue to follow and hear a little bit more about our perspective on what people are saying or how things are being felt in this country in regards to the current situation in light of things that
Yeah,
are going on. So,
yeah,
what
for
was the
sure.
last thing that
We,
you remember that we were going to address? I think
yeah,
some things that you had mentioned.
yeah. We're what we're talking through again is kind of why these ICE raids are problematic for all Americans, not just immigrants. And we were kind of listing off those. I know in the last one we touched on how they're terrorizing communities, how it's going to hurt local economies, how the it's just a waste of money because we could be
Right.
doing so much more with other with this money to help actually help people that need the help versus trying to find ones and people that we're just getting out of the country. But let's touch on other things that we think of why this should be problematic and people should view these raids as problematic as an
Mhm.
American, not just as an immigrant, even though again, we're
Right.
we're all immigrants here in the US, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So again, we've kind of touched on again the local economies, they terrorize communities, but they do make communities unsafe as well, right? Because you think that, after these raids, these immigrant communities, the people that live in their local communities, they'll be less trusting of law enforcement. They won't want to have people from law enforcement to come to them. They will not uh, discuss crimes. They will not call if there's an issue um, because they don't want that presence in the area. They just don't trust anybody. And then it gives opportunities for actual real people that
Perpetrators.
perpetrators that
Mhm.
actually do the crime to step in and actually terrorize their communities with doing illegal actions. So, kind of what do you think about that kind of aspect of it as well?
It reminds me of a time right after, a lot of the immigrants from Vietnam when they settle in certain areas and the hardworking people.
Mm,
But you had the criminal act of those inside those neighborhoods realizing that they were afraid to call the authorities.
hmm
So they took advantage of the criminal side of it, took advantage of that and invoked violence on people, innocent people. And they felt they were in an island by themselves, even though they had come to the land of opportunity. So this is sort of, to me, reflective of just what you said, is the conditions that the immigrants now are facing. But I don't think it just stops there. I think it starts to build a toxic mindset to average regular Americans, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. I think what happens is that it takes and puts a bad light on our law enforcement uh, guys and women out there putting their lives on the line because now you've got this toxic buildup of people now saying that you don't really care. You're not here to protect and serve me. You're here to follow through a process that doesn't represent me. And so then you start to build this kind of anti establishment with this and say that now I don't really care about you because you don't care about me.
mm,
And I don't believe that our law enforcement, the ones that are really in there that have taken their job seriously, I don't think that that is their intent. But this starts to build on that. And so now we build a distrust between the citizens and law enforcement. And you think about it, when someone comes up and they've got a mask around their face and they are carrying heavy armament, and suddenly you're afraid. Who do I turn to? Well, there's nobody, and
Hmm.
that sort of now builds up to where we're seeing alerts of sorts. But that alert eventually, John, I believe is going to turn anti. And when you turn anti, then, and the nature of this country has always been to take up the opposite. I mean, if we go back to the revolutionary establishment, that same mindset has come down through the ages. The Wild West, then the Great Depression, the 60s, and now we're in the 2000. I thought as a nation we were reaching the 21st century where we were actually really striving to, I wouldn't say build perfection, but work towards that continues. And it seems that we're tearing it all down to the core, back
Yeah.
beyond what the founding fathers did. So, any
Oh yeah.
case, but I
Oh yeah.
see that sort of distrust that is coming about in,
But the distrust too, like people already don't trust law enforcement, right?
of course,
And you add in now another layer of this where, again, like you said, people can come in, they're masked, they're armed, they don't identify themselves, they don't, you hear this, people are asking, tell me your name, tell me your badge number. You have people that are not even doing that. Uh,
exactly.
and then that is people think, oh, well, that's an extension of law enforcement, like you're saying. So the hate grows even further and deeper now towards law enforcement. And I think that shouldn't happen with law enforcement, right? People shouldn't view it as that, but it's unfortunate that it is, and just this distrust over the decades and decades of abuse and power and things like that that law enforcement has shown. This is just another extension of that, where people can now say, I really don't trust anybody who has a badge or who has a,
Yeah.
military, a federal, organization or
Yes.
agency on their back. I don't trust any of them. Um, and that's very, very, very unfortunate. It's just going to
Well,
create more divide. So,
it does.
yeah.
And to further extend that statement there is that even our military personnel that are the ones that are in there that have sworn to take the oath to protect this country are now being challenged between the authority of their leadership
Hmm.
and the nation
Their,
itself, their oath to
their
protect.
orders versus their
Yes,
oath, right? So
is being.
what's going to happen eventually if, people just say, hey, I'm not going to do this. Um,
Then you find that's the line that I mentioned previously, where it's a great place for an adversary nation to strike because now I've got them at their weakest point, and that's where we're headed. Unfortunately, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party fail to see that this is where we're headed. They're
yeah.
all so geared up to what their own objectives are that they've forgotten what this country stands for and what it stood for and where we were headed. We're
Yeah.
kind of in that,
That,
you know,
that crossroads almost. Uh,
yes,
um, but kind of touching on what you're saying here, I think another point that we need to make is that these raids, they contradict the American values.
yes,
This was
absolutely.
again a nation built on the backs and of immigrants. Everyone here is an immigrant. We're the land of opportunity. But now you have these raids that they're criminalizing people for just simply existing without papers. There's deeper issues here in the country. It's a broken immigration system. Um, the long processing times, labor exploitation, right? You talked about that in our last episode of labor exploitation. It still goes on today. But these are the problems that we have. But the way to fix it is not by having these raids, having ICE export and deport people for that. It's deeper than that. And we need to figure out those root causes and how to fix them before this is not even a band-aid fix. This is just a way to gain power and a way to spread fear so that a certain person or peoples can stay in power um, and do what they want. But we've lost the American values is what happens by doing these
Yeah,
things.
and that's the part I think that the majority of Americans are at the crossroads of wondering. Some are, have said, "Well, I'm just leaving the country." The ones that are fluent enough and have the ability to do so. But I don't necessarily say that you run from a true American. I truly believe this in the core. Uh, they don't run from the fight. I
Mm,
look back and say that from the true patriots that stood up against the British forces that came in, that were known to be conquerors, said that we'll fight or we'll die. And I think the true soul of this country is at this point now. And we've got to decide as a nation, do we stand together or we divide and be conquered by someone from the outside? And they don't have to necessarily conquer us from a physical standpoint. They can do it, I would say, not only military wise, but they can do it from now. They can stand and say we can divide them by supplying the other side with this and supply, so that way they destroy themselves. We don't
mm,
have to do it. They'll do it themselves. It'll
yeah,
be perfect for civil war to break out because we've got disgruntled citizens who basically are only looking at their own self
yeah,
situation and
yeah,
fight amongst themselves. And it's like, yeah, what a perfect way to destroy a nation by having them destroy themselves. And that's where we're headed. We're at that point now that America is so divided in its stance and the support and non-support of what's going on.
yeah. It's
Does that
funny
make
because
sense? It's
no,
crazy.
it's funny that you say that because that's a plot of a movie. That's what Captain America Civil War, right? That
Yeah,
was the plot of the movie. It was the person that was bad, or the bad guy that was actually creating
villain.
chaos. The villain was creating chaos so that the superheroes fought amongst each other, right? He
Yeah,
used that knowledge and power that he had of what the past was to make sure that they would fight each other and hate each other and destroy each
yeah.
other. And I think that's what he even
That's what
says
we're
in the
doing.
movie.
Well, you
Yeah,
see it. You see it happening.
yeah.
I mean, and we try, as a nation here to, uh, we try to build something that our kids and their kids and the generations beyond would continue to build that. Yeah, and it takes me to something that, and I know this is off the subject, but Walt Disney said Disneyland and Disney would never be completed. It would always be a progress, a work in progress. And his intention was to do so. I think our forefathers built their foundation so that we would be a nation that would be always and the work a work in progress. And we have failed to reach that work in progress. Now we're starting to go backwards, and which is alarming to, I would say, at least over half of America today and the world, because they're looking at it saying, I once thought the United States was the place that anything could happen, dreams could come true. And now that's becoming an ideal that is disillusioned. And people are feeling that now. And the core of it is starting to show. I'm starting to see more and more of this disdain sort of mindset.
Oh
And
yeah.
when you get there to that place, there's only a certain point before something triggers the powder keg that causes the collapse. Somebody wrote the other day, John, and I thought I had been sort of seeing this, but I didn't know. I thought it was just a thought of mine, and I would not disclose it further than outside of my own self, in a sense. But I did say that to my wife. I said, empires over the past history reached a certain stage before they collapsed. And somebody said that same thing in a statement, that we are now seeing what was once veered to be a light on the
Mm,
global scale for other nations to see and
mm,
want to emulate. we're seeing that star now starting to collapse upon itself. And when I say that, when you have half of America that supports sort of the things that are going on, and the other half in not in support of that, that's like a hot and cold. It's a storm. When you get that mixture, you get turbulence.
Mm.
The
Yeah.
turbulence is the destructive part of what is coming about. And that's what, I'm standing back and thinking, oh my gosh, we are going to reach this point where it's going to be a point of no return because of the things that are happening right now. And I think that's what the unrest feeling that everyone is feeling inside, probably on both sides of the aisle, because it's coming in, and we're not doing anything, or we're not seeing anything that is sort of holding it down. We look at let me throw this in. We look at the Supreme Court, and you ask yourself the question, you say, are we in line with the Constitution that was put in place as a roadmap for us to build, not destroy this nation? I mean, over the years, we've watched this, and the Supreme Court held the high ground for a lot of things that were going on in this nation that were unsavory to a lot of the American people that disagreed with it, but went along with what was going on. And the Supreme Court stood in the position to hold the pillars of liberty
Yep.
based on their interpretation of the Constitution. And now that seems to be something that doesn't really matter. Am I,
No,
uh,
it's
I,
gone. Yeah, it's gone. Like you, a great point, great way to bring us into my last point of why these are bad. They violate. I mean, this violates the Constitution. Um, you, you have just countless reports. If you look in the news, you look up news stories online of just ICE agents entering with no warrants,
huh,
going into
I,
places without warrants, detaining people with no due process, and then of course racially profiling people. You
that's
you
the other
have a
part of
you
it.
have you have a certain skin color, we're gonna go after you. Um, it's not law. It is almost the definition of authoritarianism, right? Where
And
they're
see, we
they're
we
just
we
doing
had
that. Yeah,
those things put into place
yeah,
as the law to prevent our nation from becoming a third world mindset. A third world nation is one where you've got one at the top and he controls everything you cannot say and do and so on. And we're seeing this heading to this apex. And this is the part where, in the Midwest, off the topic a little bit, but in the Midwest, you'll see terrible storms. And what you see is out of the north, this cool air that's coming. And out of the south, you got this hot air coming. And they mix in the middle of the country. And then you get this violent turbulence of tornadic activity, destroys everything it walks through. This is what we're seeing coming in an analogy
yeah,
is happening. You're
yeah,
seeing the mixture of these two components coming together now. At that point, when they do reach that apex, that is where it will more than likely be a point of no return on this country, which is
yeah,
sad to say.
yeah,
And I'm hoping that for some reason it can settle itself down. But I think people are starting to, as it gets closer and closer, and we're seeing this daily, John, where the heat of it is getting too hot,
mm,
that something will ignite this. And maybe the administration that's in place right now, maybe that's their agenda. Maybe that's the playbook
yep,
that is in place. And
it
if
is.
that is the case, then it is the destruction of this nation that is a part of the playbook. And maybe the people that support this, maybe they want this to be. And if so, then I have to say the country then was on a course for dissolution from the start. And this is, we've gotten as far as it's going to go. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. I think just, again, there's hundreds of years of just bad immigration policy, just bad things that we've done that we are trying, like the administration is using this as a, not even a band-aid, but as a, it really is to me, how I look at it is a talking point to their constituents, to their
Okay.
people that they, who vote for them. It is um, it is just another point of fear and a way to control those people and also to control the people that do not see things the way that they do, right?
Mhm.
So like the
Mhm.
actual people um, that are working, that are coming to America, that want to have these better lives. Like you said, they're now looking at it saying, I don't need to deal with this. Like,
Right.
why would I go
Right.
there when I could go to, wherever else, Canada
Mhm.
or, somewhere in Europe
Australia.
where I can live in peace, but I could actually make a living for myself and have, try to bring, something better for my family. Um, America's
So
just
what do
not
you
that
think? What
anymore.
do you think happen? What do you think happens with that? Here's a thought. We eliminate the talent.
Yeah.
Yeah, we eliminate the technical talent pool, the creative talent pool, and so our country then becomes stagnated.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
if you think about it, John, the diversity of this nation from all races around the world brought together, the reason why the strengths of our technical advances was brought from all around the world. It was not just one category that contributed
Hmm.
to that.
Yeah.
But we fail to realize that in our diversity was our strength. And the other countries that were not as diverse as we are realize that. You can look at this down through the ages from the football programs we had that were all one side, one white and one black.
Hmm.
But when you pull those strengths together, the strength of their ability superseded one or the other.
Yep. It,
And we're missing it.
yeah, and it's crazy too. You think about the people that don't want to come here. So then
Yeah,
again, the talent pool shrinks, right?
right,
What are we
right.
missing out in the future as well? Because the people that are coming here have young kids. They have young kids here in the U.S. that could be U.S. citizens, natural, born here in the U.S. What are we missing out by kicking them out? Right?
Yeah,
Could we be missing out on the next future president or the next future, Nobel Peace Prize winner or super smart mathematician who has his super
yeah,
breakthroughs in science and
yeah.
all these other things. It's like
Medicine,
we're
physics.
at anything that you can think of. We're kicking everyone out. Um, we're shrinking that gene pool to people that think the way that the administration wants them to think. And I think
Think
that's the
about
point of it.
that. You mentioned something about the education system being dismantled.
Hmm.
Now imagine that for a moment. The creativity that we once embellished, didn't just start with math, but it was creative thinking. You had the ability to take different courses. You had the ability to imagine, and you had the education system around you that enabled you to do so. And imagine now dismantling that so the kids no longer have that. And I think the creativity, if you think about from the technological standpoint, to imagine what can be, and then you have the mindset, the technical, ignited by that creativity to make it fruition. We're eliminating that.
We're eliminating it. And then it's not even just that piece, the technology in the future, what we're eliminating, but you've got, we're not even touching this subject, but you've got children that are in families that can't afford to have a meal on
Yes.
their day, have a meal, 3 meals a day. And they rely on federal funding and things like that from the Department of Education to have those types of things, the free meals. Um, those are the things that we're depriving our own people of
Yeah.
For what? Why? Why? Because you didn't have it when you were young. I didn't have free meals when I was young. So what? Right? Like that was a long time ago. We need to talk about today and how we can help people today.
I guess the question is like, even though we didn't have that, wouldn't we want our offsprings to have that and to continue building on this great
Exactly.
foundation that was started,
Mm-hmm.
over 200 some years ago, you know?
Exactly.
Uh,
Right?
and that's what we're seeing coming down to the end of this segment here.
Yeah.
But did
But I
we hit
mean,
on that?
yeah, I mean, I mean, we can talk through a whole bunch of other things too, right? I mean, you talk about, do we want, just because we did it doesn't mean we have to pass that along to generations. You talk about student debt, you talk about all these other things, student loans, right? Like, just because I had to pay for my college doesn't mean like I'm okay with, anyway, another subject for another time. Um,
I wanted to mention this. I guess in my dismay and disappointment, us as a nation, is that I thought when the 21st century got here, we would be talking about the further exploration of, of humanity
yeah,
beyond our star. I
yeah,
thought we would be talking about that. I thought we would be putting our phys- physics into play, and the minds that could help move this, not just as a nation, but leading other nations to this place that we could look now as explorers beyond our stars, and we can barely get outside of our own state, our own community. And that's the sad, dismay part, which I thought the 21st century would bring us into
yeah,
that space.
yeah,
Anyway,
yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's funny because, you talk about people, that were in the 50s, 60s, 70s. How was the US or how is the world going to look in the 21st century? And they would have said
yeah,
exactly what you're saying, right? Like we're going to be flying, we're going to be colonizing Mars, and we're going to be flying everyone around the moon. And um,
yeah,
no, we're talking about issues that have been around since probably the beginning of time. Um, and we're still here. So yeah,
yeah.
it's crazy, man.
I think that's the sad part for me is watching us as a nation implode instead of advancing and expanding the opportunities to really actually reach out from a
Yep,
human standpoint, and not this politician sort of mindset, one side against the other side. That right there, I thought it had its day, and it seems to be going backwards on us,
it
where we're
does.
seeing and no change in that. And the people seems to be distracted by
Yep.
that instead of actually
It,
looking at what we could do to advance humanity
yep.
beyond where we are right now. So anyway,
Yeah. That's it.
I know we're coming
So
down to the end of this one, but
we're coming down to the end, but again, we wanted to let's highlight, what can we do? What can people do in light of the situation that we're in as a nation, as a country with these raids and things of that. We mentioned on our last episode that you can donate. We'll have links again to places where you can donate either your time or if you do have financial resources and you can donate there. Um, and then there's other things that we can do. Support rapid response networks. Notify
yes,
people if you see ICE around and you want to notify people if there's, you see that all the time now with people flashing it up on social media saying, hey, ICE is here at the corner of wherever and wherever, just be aware. Um, and that'll help people as well to get prepared and get ready. So rapid responses. And then I think something that's important, right? We are actually, we're talking about these things today and we talked about it last week. As you know, Harold and I have tried to stay out of a lot of the politics of it. We really wanted to jump in and, that's not what we're all about. Um, However, there comes a time where, you have to use your voice and your platform to
Oh,
talk about these
absolutely.
things and walk through these things and address them. So if you do have, a platform to do that, please, we encourage you to talk through it, and talk to other people that, don't have the same beliefs that you do. Talk to people about, maybe that they're for these raids, and they talk through it with them, right? Make it a civil discussion, so that you can understand the reasoning behind that, and again, present facts and data. And
Yes,
if then
absolutely.
somebody doesn't want to listen to you, or if they are offended, or if they get mad, you've done what you can do, right? There's nothing more that you can do, and then you just keep moving on. Um,
Yes.
and if
I think that's the true spirit of the true patriot of this
mm,
country is to really seek the best way forward for this nation, the best way for this nation. And I'd like to say too, I think if there are demonstrations, one thing I'd like to say, you know, keep it peaceful
for sure,
because the uh, the violence side of it doesn't solve what this nation needs. And the nation must see that its light to be that kind of a light for global visual must be stable. Because if it isn't, this is no longer anything on the world stage. And it doesn't matter whether we have the most powerful military operation on the planet, it really won't mean anything. I think that's what I'd like to close with, John.
yeah, for sure. And then, again, with the peaceful protests, things like that, please, again, keep it peaceful. We know we are, as evident by the protests that we had last month. Um,
Yes.
but there's always somebody out there that uh, doesn't, and hopefully we do. But I think that um, the administration wants it to be violent, right? Then you'll be playing right into their hands, because then they get justification for doing what they do.
For the reason for all of the
Exactly.
military.
Keep it peaceful, please. If you do go out and protest and march and walk, keep it peaceful. Don't throw the punch. Don't throw a rock. Don't do any of that stuff. And I think that shows that there's restraint there, and that we're actually there for a cause, and not just to incite and start violence. Because again, we don't want to give that right to anybody, especially these law enforcement,
Yeah.
the ICE, right? That's exactly what they're looking for.
Well, they I would say that their perception, and I don't know who is behind the mask because, and I don't even know the reason why they're wearing a mask because are you afraid to show who you are? But with that being said, the action of this is not for you, me, it's for the nation. It is for the soul of this nation. That's what this is about. And so for you to stand up, even if you say nothing, but you're there to support others that feel the same need to support this nation, that's what the reasoning is about.
That's it.
Anyways, well, John, until next time, we'll
Yeah,
finish with another segment here. And I look forward to our next
yeah,
Lew Perspective.
that's it. Thanks, Harold. All right, guys, we'll see you.
All right, we'll see you.
Bye.